Your grandparents grew up in a world you would not recognize. They would be the first to tell you that half of what they did as kids would get them arrested today. Things that were normal, everyday, and just part of growing up in Australia in the 50s through to the 80s have become unthinkable, dangerous, or downright illegal. Today we are looking at 12 things all Australian grandparents did that would absolutely shock kids today. Letting kids roam free from dawn until dark. This is the big one. The thing that defines childhood in the 50s, 60s, and 70s more than anything else. Kids left the house after breakfast and did not come back until dinner. Nobody knew where they were. Nobody asked. Nobody worried. You would wake up, scoff down some Weet-Bix, and bolt out the door. Maybe you would tell your mum you were going to the creek or to a mate's place, but chances are you did not even do that. You just went. And for the next 8, 10, or 12 hours, you were gone. Riding bikes through the bush, climbing trees, building cubby houses, catching tadpoles, exploring construction sites, wandering down to the local shops. No mobile phones, no tracking devices, no check-ins. You were just out there in the world, figuring it out. Parents trusted that the neighborhood was safe. They trusted that other adults would step in if something went wrong. And they trusted that kids were tough enough to handle themselves. If you fell and scraped your knee, you would get up and keep going. If you got lost, you would ask someone for directions. If you got in a fight with another kid, you would sort it out yourselves. Nobody called it neglect. It was just childhood. Today, letting your kid walk to the park alone at age 10 would get you judged, maybe even reported. We have bubble-wrapped childhood, tracked every move, scheduled every hour. Kids today have more supervision than prisoners. And maybe that is safer, maybe it is smarter, but your grandparents would tell you something was lost. The independence, the resilience, the sheer bloody freedom of being a kid who could just disappear into the world for a day and come home covered in dirt, scratches, and stories. Smacking kids in public and nobody batted an eye. Corporal punishment, smacking, the strap. Call it what you want, but your grandparents copped it, and it was completely normal. Not just at home, but in public, in schools, everywhere. And nobody thought twice about it. If you misbehaved at the shops, your mum would give you a whack on the legs right there in the aisle. If you talked back at home, your dad would give you a clip around the ear. If you mucked up at school, the teacher would send you to the headmaster for the cane. 6 of the best across the palms or the backside, and you would walk back to class stinging and humiliated. This was not abuse in the eyes of the community. It was discipline. It was how you taught kids right from wrong, how you kept them in line. Parents believed that sparing the rod spoiled the child, and society backed them up. Teachers had full authority to physically punish students, and parents supported it. If you came home and told your mum the teacher had strapped you, she would not complain to the school. She would ask what you did to deserve it. Was it right? By today's standards, absolutely not. We know now that physical punishment does not work, that it causes harm, that there are better ways to teach kids. But back then, it was just the way things were done. Your grandparents grew up with it, raised their own kids with it, and most of them turned out fine. Today, smacking your kid in public would get you confronted by strangers, possibly reported to authorities. Schools cannot touch students. The whole culture around discipline has shifted. And your grandparents watching this change might shake their heads and mutter something about kids today having no respect. They lived through a different world, one where a quick smack was seen as love, as care, as setting boundaries. Right or wrong, that was their reality. Smoking indoors with kids in the room was normal. Everyone smoked. Your granddad, your nan, your teachers, your doctor, pregnant women smoked. Parents smoked in the car with the windows up. Mums smoked while cooking dinner. Dads smoked at the dinner table. And nobody worried about the kids breathing it in because nobody knew it was dangerous yet. The lounge room was a haze of cigarette smoke every evening. Your grandparents would settle in after tea, light up a Winnie Blue or a Benson and Hedges, and the room would fill with that thick, acrid smell. Kids would be sitting there watching television, breathing it all in, and it was just normal. The curtains reeked of it, the furniture absorbed it, your clothes smelled like smoke permanently. In the car, it was worse. Long road trips with the windows up, both parents puffing away in the front seat, Kids crammed in the back with no escape. The smoke would sting your eyes, make you feel sick, but you did not complain. That was just how it was. And it was not seen as neglectful or harmful. Smoking was cool, sophisticated, even healthy, according to some ads. Doctors recommended certain brands. Pregnant women were told it was fine. The science linking smoking to cancer, to lung disease, to secondhand smoke harming children came later. By the 70s and the 80s, the truth started coming out. Public health campaigns began, smoking bans were introduced, and slowly the culture shifted. But your grandparents grew up in a time when lighting up indoors with kids around was as normal as having a cup of tea. Today, smoking indoors is illegal in many places. Smoking in a car with kids can get you fined. We know the damage it causes, and we protect children from it. But your grandparents did not have that knowledge. They smoked because everyone did, and they raised their kids in clouds of tobacco smoke without a second thought. Looking back, it is shocking. At the time, it was just life. No seat belts, kids bouncing around the car. Seat belts were not compulsory in Australia until 1971. And even then it took years for everyone to actually use them. Before that, kids would pile into the car, sit wherever there was space, and bounce around like ping pong balls. You would have 3 kids in the back seat, maybe a couple more in the boot if it was a wagon. Nobody was strapped in. On long trips, kids would lie down in the back, sleep on the parcel shelf under the rear window, or stand up between the front seats, leaning on the backs of the chairs, chatting to mum and dad. Sharp corners, you would slide across the vinyl seats, slamming into your sibling. Hard braking, you would brace yourself against the dashboard. Accidents, well, people died a lot. But until the laws changed, nobody thought much about it. That was just how you travelled. Even after seatbelts became mandatory, enforcement was patchy. Parents would strap themselves in but let the kids go loose. Or they would have one seatbelt for 3 kids and just loop it over whoever was in the middle. Nobody worried about child seats, booster seats, or proper restraints. Babies sat on laps in the front seat. Toddlers stood up in the back. It was chaos and it was dangerous, but it was normal. Today, not securing your child properly in a car seat can result in heavy fines and demerit points. We have strict rules about age, weight, and seating positions. Cars are safer, roads are safer, and we know that seatbelts save lives. But your grandparents grew up flying around the car like loose cargo. They survived, but plenty did not. It is one of those things that seems absolutely insane now. But back then, it was just how you got from A to B. Sending 5-year-olds to the shop alone. Kids as young as 5 were sent to the corner shop with a handful of coins and a shopping list. No adult supervision, no phones, no tracking. Just a little kid walking down the street to buy bread, milk, and maybe some lollies if there was change left over. Your nan would hand you a pound note or a few shillings, tell you what to get, and send you off. You'd walk down the street, cross roads by yourself, push open the heavy shop door, and hand the shopkeeper the list. They'd gather everything, wrap it up, take your money, and send you home. If you forgot something, you'd cop it when you got back, but otherwise it was just another errand. The shopkeeper knew you, knew your family, and would make sure you got the right stuff. Sometimes they'd slip you an extra lolly, sometimes they'd have a chat. It was personal, safe, because everyone knew everyone, and kids were expected to handle it. It taught responsibility. You had to remember what you were sent for, count your change, carry everything home without dropping it. You learned to navigate your neighborhood, to interact with adults, to be independent. Today, sending a 5-year-old to the shop alone would be unthinkable. People would call the police. You'd be accused of neglect. We've decided that young children can't be trusted alone in public, that the world is too dangerous, that supervision is essential. maybe they're right. But your grandparents did it, and so did every other kid on the street. It was normal, expected, and it worked. Kids grew up faster, more independent, more capable, and the shop run was just one of those everyday tasks that built confidence and competence in ways that being driven everywhere never could. No sunscreen ever. Australia, the skin cancer capital of the world. The sun is harsh, the UV index is brutal, and melanoma rates are terrifying. Your grandparents spent their entire childhoods outside with no sunscreen, no hats, no protection whatsoever. They were out in the sun all day, every day, swimming at the beach, playing cricket in the backyard, working on farms, riding bikes through the scorching heat. Skin would turn red, blister, peel, and nobody thought it was a problem. Getting burnt was just part of summer. Sunscreen existed, but it was thick, greasy, smelled awful, and nobody used it. The idea that the sun could kill you was laughable. Tanned skin was healthy, attractive, a sign of an active outdoor life. Pale skin was something to be ashamed of. So kids baked themselves deliberately, chasing that golden brown glow. Hats were for older people working in the garden, not for kids. Slip Slop Slap did not start until 1981. And even then, it took years for the message to sink in. Before that, sun protection simply was not a thing. The result? Your grandparents' generation has the highest rates of skin cancer in the world. Visit any dermatologist in Australia, and the waiting room is full of older people having spots cut off, undergoing treatment, dealing with the consequences of decades of unprotected sun exposure. Today we slather kids in SPF 50+, make them wear rashies at the beach, and enforce no hat, no play rules at school. We have learned the hard way that the Australian sun is dangerous, and we protect our kids accordingly. But your grandparents did not know. They spent their childhoods lobster red, peeling and burnt, and thought nothing of it. Looking back, it is terrifying. At the time, it was just summer. Drinking straight from the garden hose. Thirsty? Forget going inside for a glass of water. You drank straight from the garden hose. You would turn on the tap, let the water run for a second to get rid of the hot, rubbery first bit, then stick your mouth over the end and gulp down as much as you needed. The water tasted like rubber and metal. It was warm, sometimes had bits floating in it, and probably was not the cleanest thing in the world. But it was fast, convenient, and every kid did it. Nobody worried about bacteria, contaminants, or whether the hose itself was safe to drink from. You were hot, you were thirsty, you drank from the hose. On scorching summer days, kids would turn the hose on each other, soaking their clothes and cooling down. Then you would take a few gulps for good measure and get back to playing. No bottled water, no filtered water, no fuss. Just a rusty old hose connected to a tap, and the absolute certainty that you would survive. Today, parents would be horrified. We know that garden hoses can leach chemicals, harbor bacteria, and are not designed for drinking. We give kids filtered water, bottled water, water that has been treated and tested. We do not let them drink from random outdoor taps. But your grandparents grew up on hose water. They turned out fine, though who knows what they ingested along the way. It is one of those small, everyday things that defined childhood back then. A tiny ritual that seems gross and risky now, but was just normal. Thirsty, hose, simple. Kids working proper jobs from age 12. Child labour laws today are strict. Kids under 15 cannot work most jobs, and even then there are limits on hours and conditions. But your grandparents were working proper jobs from age 12, sometimes younger, and nobody thought it was exploitation. Delivering newspapers before school, stacking shelves at the corner shop on weekends, helping out on the family farm, doing back-breaking work in the sun, working at the local milk bar after school, serving customers and handling money. These were not just chores. These were real jobs with real responsibilities, and kids were expected to do them. The money was not much, a few shillings a week, maybe a pound if you were lucky, but it was yours. You would hand most of it to your mum to help with the family budget, keep a bit for lollies or the pictures, and that was that. Work was just part of life, even for kids. On farms, it was even more intense. Kids would be up before dawn, milking cows, feeding animals, mending fences. School was secondary to the work that needed doing. If harvest time came, you stayed home from school to help. Nobody questioned it. The farm needed labour, kids provided it, and education took a back seat. Today, we protect kids from work. We prioritise education, childhood, and play. We believe kids deserve to be kids, not labourers. And legally, we enforce that. Working before 15 is heavily restricted, and child labour is rightly seen as unethical. But your grandparents did not have that luxury. Families needed the income, farms needed the labour, and kids were expected to contribute. It made them tough, resourceful, and gave them a work ethic that is rare today. But it also robbed them of parts of their childhood. It was necessity, not choice, and looking back, it is hard to believe how normal it seemed. No bike helmets, just ride and hope. Every kid had a bike. You rode it everywhere, all the time, at full speed, doing jumps, racing your mates, weaving through traffic. And not a single one of you wore a helmet, because helmets did not exist for regular bike riding. They were for racing cyclists, professionals, not for kids mucking around the neighbourhood. You crashed. Of course you crashed. You came off on gravel, slammed into fences, flipped over the handlebars. You got up, dusted yourself off, maybe had a bit of a cry if it really hurt, then got back on and kept riding. Broken bones, concussions, road rash were all part of the deal. Nobody sued the council for unsafe bike paths. Nobody blamed the parents for not supervising. You crashed, you healed, you learnt to ride better. Bike helmets became mandatory in Australia in the early 90s, starting in Victoria in 1990 and spreading to other states. Before that, the idea of wearing a helmet just to ride your bike around the block seemed ridiculous, overprotective, unnecessary. But head injuries were common. Kids died, kids were left with permanent brain damage. The statistics were grim, and eventually the government acted. Now, not wearing a helmet gets you fined, and kids are taught from the moment they get on a bike that helmets are non-negotiable. Your grandparents, though, they rode helmetless for their entire childhoods. They flew down hills, no hands, wind in their hair, free and reckless. Some of them got hurt. Some of them got lucky. All of them remember it as one of the great freedoms of being a kid, even if it was undeniably dangerous. Looking back, it seems insane, but at the time, it was just how you rode a bike. Dripping. For kids today, the word probably means nothing. For your grandparents, it was a staple. After cooking a roast, the fat that dripped off the meat would be collected, cooled, and solidified into a white, greasy substance. That was dripping, and people spread it on toast for breakfast. You would take a thick slice of white bread, toast it over the stove or under the griller, then slather it with cold, hard dripping, maybe add a bit of salt. That was it. Breakfast. It was cheap, filling, and tasted like meat fat because that is exactly what it was. Families did this because they could not afford to waste anything. Meat was expensive, butter was expensive, but dripping was free. It was already there, left over from Sunday's roast, so you used it. Nothing went to waste. You would keep the dripping in a jar in the fridge sometimes for weeks and use it for cooking or spreading. It sounds disgusting now. We know that saturated animal fat is terrible for your heart, your cholesterol, your health. We would never feed kids pure beef or lamb fat on toast. But back then, it was normal. Kids grew up on it, and while some probably had heart attacks at 50, most survived just fine. Today we give kids avocado on sourdough, smoothie bowls, organic yogurt. We obsess over nutrition, omega-3s, superfoods. Your grandparents ate congealed meat fat on Wonder White and got on with their day. It is one of those things that is almost impossible to explain to modern kids. The texture, the taste, the sheer oddness of it. But for your grandparents, dripping on toast was just breakfast. unremarkable and ordinary, part of a world where you ate what you had and were grateful for it. One family phone, everyone listening to your calls. Privacy? What privacy? There was one phone in the house, bolted to the wall in the hallway or the kitchen, and everyone could hear your conversations. If you wanted to call a friend, you had to wait until the phone was free. If your dad was on it, you waited. If your sister was yakking away, you stood there tapping your foot, getting angrier by the minute. And when it was finally your turn, everyone in the house could hear every word you said. You would stretch that curly cord as far as it would go, maybe duck into the next room, lower your voice, but your mum was still in the kitchen listening to every word. Your brother would walk past and make faces. There was no escaping it. Phone calls were public events, and if someone called for you, whoever answered would yell out, "It's for you," and you'd have to walk to the phone, pick up the heavy receiver, and have your conversation with the whole family as your audience. Teenagers trying to talk to their boyfriend or girlfriend, forget about it. Mum standing right there, pretending not to listen, but absolutely listening. Romance, secrets, private conversations, none of it was possible. The phone was a family tool, not a personal device. Long-distance calls were expensive, so you kept them short. If someone called from interstate, the whole family would gather around, waiting for their turn to say hello for 30 seconds before hanging up to save money. Today, every kid has their own phone. Private conversations, unlimited texting, video calls behind closed doors. Your grandparents can't fathom it. They grew up with one phone for 6 people, no privacy, and the constant awareness that anything you said could and would be overheard by your entire family. This one's almost impossible to believe, but it's true. Kids, teenagers, and even young adults hitchhiked constantly. It was a normal, accepted way to get around, especially in regional areas where public transport barely existed. You'd stick your thumb out on the side of the road and someone would stop. It could be a farmer in a ute, a family in a station wagon, or a truckie on a long haul. You'd hop in, tell them where you were going, and they'd drop you as close as they could. No questions asked, no fear, just trust. Parents knew their kids hitchhiked. Sometimes they even encouraged it. Need to get to the next town? Hitch. Going to a mate's place 20 kilometers away? Hitch. It was cheap, it was easy, and most of the time it was safe. People looked out for each other. Drivers felt a sense of responsibility, a community obligation to help someone get where they were going. But not always. There were risks. People went missing. Assaults happened. Murders happened. Ivan Milat proved how dangerous hitchhiking could be. And after his crimes came to light in the 1990s, the practice largely died out. Today, hitchhiking is seen as insanely risky, something only the desperate or the naive would do. We teach kids never to get in a car with a stranger, never to trust someone just because they stop to help. The culture of communal trust that made hitchhiking possible has eroded, replaced by fear, caution, and the knowledge that not everyone has good intentions. But your grandparents hitchhiked all the time. They got in cars with strangers, travelled hundreds of kilometres with people they'd never met, and mostly, they were fine. It was part of the social fabric, a system that worked because people believed in helping each other. Looking back, it seems reckless, dangerous, unthinkable, and in today's world, it is. But back then, it was just how you got around. 12 things. 12 pieces of everyday life that were normal for your grandparents, but would shock kids today. Some of it was freedom, some of it was danger, some of it was just necessity, but all of it was real. Your grandparents grew up in a different Australia. Tougher, freer, rougher around the edges. They took risks we would not dream of taking today. They survived things that would get parents arrested now. And they turned out fine mostly, though plenty did not. We have learned a lot since then. We protect kids more, supervise more, regulate more. Some of that is good, some of it has maybe gone too far. But the world your grandparents knew, where kids roamed free, got smacked in public, rode bikes without helmets, and hitchhiked to the next town, that world is gone. It is not coming back. So next time you are with your grandparents, ask them about their childhood. Ask them what they did that would be illegal today. Ask them about the freedom, the risks, the everyday wildness of growing up in the 50s, the 60s, or the 70s in Australia. Their stories will shock you, make you laugh, maybe make you grateful for the world we have now, but they will also make you think. Because for all the safety we have gained, we have lost something too. And your grandparents remember exactly what that was. So tell us, which of these shocked you the most? Which one would you never let your own kids do? Drop it in the comments, mate. This has been Retro Australia, where the past never really leaves us.